What keeps you awake at night? The killers, the secrets, the moments horror fans can't forget. If you live for the scream, you belong at the Scream at Night podcast, your midnight home for everything horror. From Scream 96 to Scream 7 theories, Halloween, Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Saw, and the classics that built the genre. The Scream at Night podcast covers horror's past, present, and future. Hosted by Night of the Night Watch Zone, each episode of the Scream at Night podcast delivers sharp debates, franchise breakdowns, character studies, and a fearless look into the darkest corners of horror. Listen now on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon, Pandora, and wherever you get your podcast. Add the Scream at Night podcast to your podcast playlist right now, where horror never sleeps.
Hello?
Hello, Sydney.
What's going on, everybody? We're here ready to do this thing on a Saturday night, and I have my good friend and just amazing content creator, Cody Leach, here. He made it, guys, and he's ready to rock. Bro, seriously.
Better late than never.
Hey, man, it is what it is.
Yeah.
We're all here ready to rock, and thank you so much for just taking the time, as you always do, man, in the community, just everywhere. It's seriously, it doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated, seriously.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For all you guys that are here, you guys know the drill. Thank you for being here. If you're not subscribed to Cody, we've got the links in the chat. We're going to be rocking and rolling, talking about, obviously, Scream 7, like the rest of the world. But if you guys have any questions or comments or any of your theories that you want to talk about tonight, definitely throw them in as soon as you can. Super chats obviously go to the front of the line, and I want to make sure I'm respectful of Cody's time tonight. So let's get right down to it, man. I obviously, as a fan of you and a Patreon member and everything, definitely listen to your thoughts on this thing. For those who may not have heard it, or just kind of a quick recap, you saw Scream 7, you come out of the theater. What are you thinking?
It was pretty much the movie that I expected, unfortunately, because my expectations were not high. I really like the Scream franchise, and I think that it is one of the most consistently quality horror franchises out there. Like, even my bottom of the franchise previous to the release of Scream 7, which I go back and forth between Scream 3 and Scream 6, just to have to throw that out there. Even the bottom of that list is like, but this is still a solid movie. Like, there's still a lot of really good stuff in here. Like, there's no Jason Takes Manhattans or Freddy's Deads or anything like that in the Scream franchise.
Resurrection.
Yeah, nothing like that, at least not yet. But with Scream 7, man, like, there was just so much stuff. Like, I wasn't really somebody that dug my heels in any side of the fence when it came to all the controversy. I still just wanted a good Scream film. Like, it was a shame. Like, even when Scream 6, when Nev Campbell had the drama with the pay dispute, it was like, well, as a fan of her, this sucks. It shouldn't be this way. And then with Scream 7, it was like that times 1,000 with all the different things. But it was really just the changing of creative hands that had me worried, because very rarely does that work out well for the movie. When you have a script and then it gets tossed out because you fired the actress, and then all of a sudden you got a director that leaves because there's death threats, and now we're going to throw it to this director and writer, and we're going to bring this person back. It's like, so this is like what, plan C for Scream 7? Like, I hope he got a good idea, because it doesn't sound like it.
Right.
And I didn't watch the trailers, but all I had seen was, it just felt like they were really banking on nostalgia being the draw. We're going to get Nev back. Matthew Lillard's going to be in here somewhere. Oh, Kevin Williamson, he's going to direct for the first time. And it's like, that doesn't bode well for me. That doesn't excite me about your idea. That feels like key jangling. So I walked in hoping that it was at least going to be like Scream 3, Scream 6 level, where there's probably going to be some flaws. There's little to no chance it's going to be the best written movie in the franchise, but hopefully it still delivers more than it doesn't.
Yeah.
And for me, it was by a landslide the worst effort that we have gotten. Like, this is the only movie of the 7 that I had to give a negative review to, because despite the fact there was some stuff that I liked, and we'll get into those, the writing overall, and even, even the directing in a lot of ways, it just really felt like this thing was thrown together and rushed out, and I did not like most of the end result.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, for me, and I've gone on record, it felt like a tale of two movies because there were some things I thought were really good.
Hmm.
I really enjoyed the fact that we have Sydney Prescott front and center. We haven't had her like this since 4, in my opinion, because in Scream 5, she came in an hour into the film.
Hmm.
She didn't have like as much of an emotional reaction to Dewey's death as I was hoping she'd have. And then, it's her and Gail, they're badasses, and they're taking down the Ghostface killers with Sam and Tara. So I felt as though that was a victory for me as a big fan of Sydney and Nev. And I thought she had some good things to work with as a mother, and that dynamic of trying to protect her daughter.
Hmm.
There were a couple of things within that I don't think worked to the film's favor in a way, because you have Isabel May as Tatum. I thought she was fine, for
Hmm.
what they asked her to do. But I was talking about this the other night with a couple of my buddies, and the only thing is that the way that they characterized Tatum, it didn't really set her up as strongly as a possible, final girl or co-final girl for the future, because everything she did was like as a right-hand man to Sydney,
Hmm.
saying like, I gave one of my best examples, at least in my opinion, of this is like when you look at like Halloween 2018 and you have Allison, who in a way is the third level final girl, because you have Jamie Lee and of course you have Karen and Judy Greer, and Allison is like the granddaughter, but Allison had some scenes alone,
Hmm.
chased by Michael, but most notably when she's in the SUV with Sartain and he brings Michael in there, she can't get out. She's on her own and it's bad news for her, but she used her wits and her mind, saying to Sartain, well, he talked to me. And then, of course, Sartain's like, what did he say? And he stops. And, and so she was able to get out of that on her own. She showed courage under fire alone.
Yeah.
And to me, that won me over. I mean, I was on her side pretty much from the get-go because of the way she was characterized. But she showed me, like, yeah, she could be in one of these movies alone without Jamie Lee Curtis or Judy Greer.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get that from Tatum. I'm not trying to say, one makes one better or whatever, but there were some things about their characterization that just didn't like hit as hard for me. But overall, the mother and daughter thing was great. I did like the way Ghostface, was filmed, the attacks, the kills, they felt intense, kind of like a combination of 4 and 6. Everything, pre-unmasking, that is. Okay. You know,
Important asterisk for this one,
yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
everything pre-unmasking, I thought Ghostface, and he kind of was, at least the way it seemed, I don't know if it was intentional, but it was almost like they had him homaging Michael Myers a bit, even in,
Very much. Yeah.
yeah.
If they say that wasn't deliberate, then they're lying, because like that was from the very first sequence you see him. I was like instantly, I'm like, oh, John Carpenter, cool. And and it's cool to pay homage. I mean, this whole
Yeah,
franchise is based off of homage and reference and stuff. So to me, I liked that. That was one of the
yeah,
few things that Kevin Williamson did where I was like, okay, I'm digging that.
right, right.
Mhm.
And then we get to the third act, and it just the
Yeah.
wheels, they came off. I had a feeling that, like, I went in cautious, concerned, but hopeful, just hoping
Same.
against hope. Um, and of course, now we know that Kevin, it's so weird because he's such a gifted writer, especially with characters and interactions between the characters. We see
Mhm.
that all throughout 1, 2, and 4. But he didn't really have, they say he co-wrote, but from what I understand, from what I've researched, he didn't really have a lot that he touched upon. He did the AI
Mhm.
angle wasn't him. The third act wasn't him. He really worked on, a lot of the Sydney interactions with Tatum and Gale, a little bit of the twins, and that was pretty much about it.
Yeah.
So it's just so weird because you bring him on as a director and that's fine, but if you're not going to let him cook, it's like you're undercutting him in a way. So that was frustrating. So yeah, it's like a tale of two movies to me. It's frustrating. There's some disappointment. The characters, other than maybe Chloe in the bar, when she was kind of talking and making the pizza and all that. Other than that, the other characters, I barely remember them. If I hadn't talked
Mhm.
about it for so much up until now, I wouldn't even know who those characters are.
You could put a gun to my head and tell me to name them, and I'd be dead. You know what I mean? I'd be like, yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, like how are you gonna have a Scream film and I don't know these characters?
Mhm.
I mean, you look at all the even 5 and 6, you've got these characters that stood out at least, and especially in the first 4 films. You look at 4, you had Jill and Charlie and Kirby and Trevor, and it's like, and they pop, they have their moments, and some of them are big standouts, along with Gail, Sydney, and Dewey and Judy. So, Scream films have a precedent for giving us these characters that pop and these moments that can kind of live beyond the film. And to me, anyways, and again, you guys in chat let us know, and Cody, you can let me know, but these characters didn't pop at all for me. They really didn't.
I agree with you. Unfortunately, I really fear that them hitching the wagon back to the original characters has set them up where it's going to be extremely difficult for them to break things like that going forward.
Mm,
Because if you now are locked in where it's like, okay, even as audience members, we know Sydney's safe,
yeah.
Gail's safe,
Yeah.
Sydney's daughter's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Probably not even her husband. I mean, fucking dude lived at the end of this one, even though he was a
After this.
pincushion and left in the garage for 12 hours.
Yeah.
And so it really feels like you're going to start a Scream film and you're going to have your Sydney and company characters and you're going to have your new cannon fodder characters.
Yeah.
And if you have so many people that you have to dedicate I almost said screen time to,
Hmm.
and that's even without including other people, like if you're going to have the twins in there, or if you're going to have Kirby or somebody else come back to add to the mix, how much screen time are you really going to have to get us to know these people when you have to have a kill every 15 minutes? Otherwise, people lose interest. And
Right.
so even people like McKenna Grace, who I would almost say arguably is probably the biggest rising star of the entire cast, oddly enough, she's the first one to bite it.
Hmm.
And you don't really get much from her character at all. It's just, oh, that's
Nope.
McKenna Grace. Okay, cool.
Yep.
And so I like it's such a difficult thing where I love Sydney Prescott as a character.
Hmm.
I think she's very important to Scream. And 5 and 6, especially 6, definitely have their problems. But I'm somebody where I really did think that was not just a good direction to go, it was a necessary direction to go, where it's like we're going to start phasing out the older characters that have been through this 5 times now and came out unscathed, except for Dewey.
Yep.
And we're going to start having these new characters and new stories and new directions. And now that's cut off. And now it's back to Sydney. And it's like, even with the daughter angle, which I agree with you, there was some good stuff and some things that, didn't really move the needle much. What else really is there to do with Sydney? Even
Yep.
more so, like there's nothing left to do with Gail. I'm sorry. I'll just plant my feet in the sand on that one.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I really fear for like, even if we get a well written version of that movie, it's still going to be a pretty safe, predictable Scream experience because you know who's safe, you know who's going to die. And really, it's just who's the killer and what's the motivation. And when you get to the end of
Yep.
Scream 7, it's like, oh my God, please do something better than that next time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. I mean, they're definitely in a corner now. And like you said, and they had opportunities again to have gone a little bit deeper. One thing that my good friend Jack we were talking about, and he brought this up, the whole thing with Gail and her injuries, her condition, and so forth. And you get that moment where Courtney does her thing, and Nev gets that look, and it's a couple of words. I thought they could have definitely gone deeper into that, a little bit more, showing a vulnerable Gail a little bit more, struggling and just something for Courtney Cox to really like, work at. But they didn't, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that would have saved much, but I'm just saying there could have been some interesting things because Gail is absent in that third act. I'm like, where's Gail?
Well, I'll tell you, it really felt to me, and I would almost bet money on this because of just the behind the scenes stuff that we know. It really felt like they wrote this script with like blank placeholders, not knowing confidently who was actually going to come back with all the drama going on. You know, who is going to come back and support this franchise? We don't know. So just write stock, legacy characters for Act 2. Don't have anything imperative to Act 3. That way, in case we don't get anybody, it still works.
Yeah.
And we'll just plug and play and change the dialogue a bit. And that's how it felt. Like when Gale and the twins showed up, it literally felt like a tonal shift in the movie.
Yes.
Like they might as well have been in the Mystery Machine. And so, and even the way that they get taken out, like, I mean,
oh, God.
Literally just on paper, think about this. You have the scene in the bar where the two legacy characters that are there at the bar get knocked out and they just go, like off to the side on top of each other. And it's like, well, they're gone for the next 30 minutes. And then with Gale, even more so, you got the whole thing at the news station.
Yeah.
And then, hey, I'm going to kill your daughter. She's at this bar. You better get your ass there. Oh, and so you have Sydney runs outside, realizes she doesn't have the keys, and rather than go back upstairs and just get them from Gale, which would take 90 seconds, she goes, I'm just going to run 45 miles to this freaking place. And then that doesn't even, like, if you can accept that even, and that's a tall order, fine. Yeah. But that doesn't explain why Gale doesn't show up or, like, speed past her in the road, like, get in, bitch, what are you doing?
Right?
She just like, all right, I guess me and Sydney aren't cool. Like, I'll see you in the climax. Like, it's so weird and awkward and just all it does is draw your attention to the fact that there's not a logical reason for them to be there, which is a problem. That is a writing problem.
Yep. Yeah, they could have easily written it again with Gale's condition, before, Sydney runs off or whatever. Show something where, I don't know, maybe like Gale, has heart problems or something. Like she just can't do stuff like that anymore. Just something to explain that because like you said,
you left me in New York. You handle this yourself, you asshole.
See how you
I would have taken that.
Right. I know, because it's kind of like, of course she would have gotten in the vehicle and went after Sydney, because here's the thing, when that town has a curfew, that includes every living soul, insect, animal, including or police. Man. Yeah. That was the emptiest town. That place was emptier than Haddonfield Memorial Hospital in Halloween 2, man. There was nobody around, which of course, it created some creepy atmosphere. And again, and people in the chat, some of these folks, obviously have heard me talk about it. I'm having fun with it. I mean, I'm being honest, but there was some fun, but I just think that for every step we took forward, we took 2 steps back, and we didn't necessarily have to take those 2 steps back if we had done a couple of other things. There were ways to really elevate what they were trying to do, and they just didn't do it, and it's just too bad.
Yeah, and this is one of those movies too where I feel like when you really start to roast the movie for all of its little and medium and even big problems, a lot of times people get defensive. They'll throw out nitpick and say you're being too critical and everything. But here's the issue when you have a movie like this. Like, we all accept dumb logic or little logic gaps or conveniences for the sake of a movie if we're having fun with it, or if they're minor inconveniences along the way, little speed bumps. Usually it's not a big deal. Right. When you got a movie like this where it's like you get one of those speed bumps every 6 minutes, they literally snowball. And so it's not just a collection of tiny problems that are nitpicks. Now it's like this is a constant issue throughout the movie. I mean, I thought the opening was great. Yes. And then as the movie goes on, you look back and you're like, what was the point of that shit in the beginning? Like, what does that have any relevance to the plot whatsoever? That's weird. We've never had that happen in a Scream film.
That's right.
Or you have, hey, we're going to go lock ourselves in a panic room and then try to leave the panic room immediately.
Yeah.
We're going to do this whole thing where we've clearly trained our daughter, and we have the cops come in like, all right, go clear the house, guys. And they literally go like this. They're like,
10 seconds.
All right, you're good. It's over and over and over again, where if that bugs you on any level, you never get to come down from it and distract and just kind of engage back with the film again and escape. You're constantly like on the defense of like, why is this so weird? Why is none of this making sense? Why does this feel like we're just going like haphazardly from A to C without ever going through B?
Yes. Yep. I mean, just little things like that, including the hatchway for the attic, which is big enough for a tank, you know, and it's like, come on, guys. And I don't know, like I said, that's a great scene to even describe because it's all these logic jumps, but yet I thought it was a fun scene, you know, because of the fight. I did think, you know, there's some cool fights. And by the way, shout out to Joel McHale because I didn't give him much of a chance when I first heard about his character and had seen the trailer, and I was just like, he's toast. He's not, you know. I mean, I like him as an actor, but I mean, just, you know, being in a Scream 7 film, potentially taking over for Patrick Dempsey. But I gotta admit, he was probably my favorite new character in the movie. He was fun. He was cool, and you know, he had some great fight scenes that looked pretty good. The choreography. And I thought, other than the fact that he should have died, I mean, Ghostface has him wrapped up in plastic. He's encased like a tomb. Okay, he can't move, and Ghostface stabs him right dead in the heart like 80,000 times. He's bleeding for 2 weeks. It's like, come on, man. I love this character, but what are we doing? This is worse than Chad and Six, man.
Oh man, I'm telling you. And that was funny too. Like, we're gonna go as far as to show that Gail, with her little scuffle in Six, she's got like nerve damage and stuff. And it's like, what about Chad, man? Like, he's got like 65 different knife wounds all over his body at this point. I mean, Joel McHale, I think he did pretty good here, but especially compared to what he has done in other horror films, because I got to be honest with you, I think up to this point he has been terrible in horror. Like, some comedians I just don't think translate well over to serious acting. You know, some people do it, some can't. But I thought he was awful in Becky. I thought the whole movie was awful, but I thought he was awful in It's a Wonderful Knife. And so when he showed up in here, I was like, oh, but he was pretty decent. I like the scene with him and Sydney. They had pretty good little husband-wife chemistry.
Yeah. They had some pretty good chemistry. They didn't beat us over the head with it. So it was effective enough that I felt like, yep, this is a family. And, you know, I liked it when he was calling Sydney out on her shit, say, hey, that was on you. You know, so it just kind of showed some of their, see, to me, that was some of the better chemistry and writing and stuff like that, because they didn't need to do a lot, at least for me, to kind of feel the sense of the family and the dynamics that they have. And I was down with them. You know,
and Sydney's a very spiteful wife, because just because he called her out in the first act, that's why she didn't give a shit about him in act 2 and 3. Right? The whole rest of the movie, she never thinks to check up on him.
Oh my God, she does that one call where she says, "Mark, where are you? Tatum's missing," or Tatum something. I can't remember the exact line, but she's just like, "Mark, where are you?" Leaving a message, and then that was it. Like, you know,
it
I got business to take care of.
It legitimately almost felt to me when they pulled him out in the plastic and they had that little thing in the third act, like, their reactions almost felt like, oh shit, I forgot. You all right? Like,
right? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Just didn't seem worried about her husband or checking up on him. Exactly, man. No doubt at all. Real quick too in the chat. And by the way, thank you guys for being here. We appreciate it, hanging in there and just being really, really cool. We do have a new channel member here. We have, and here we are, 410. Thank you so much for joining tonight. We really appreciate that. And welcome to the community. Hope you're enjoying this conversation and having Cody here tonight. We also have Erica coming in with a super chat, reminding people, hit the like. Thank you, Erica. You did not have to send a super chat to say that. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. You rock. You really, really, really rock. All right. So let me ask you this as well. Do you have like a favorite or best scene in the film, or a film that stands out and you're like, this is what I want in this film?
I really enjoyed the opening. You know, I think that there's certain key pieces to the Scream experience that you really should nail. The meta commentary, of course, the Ghostface reveals, but I do think the opening is important. I feel like the original film set that expectation of like, you got to start these with a bang. And I think most of the movies do a pretty good job. So I did like this one. I liked the
Yeah,
whole, like, it didn't end up really being the main point of the movie, which kind of felt odd to me.
it
But there
was.
was a whole thing about like influencers and even like this modern culture of like somehow idolizing or glamorizing serial killers. I mean, you'll see people walk around with like Jeffrey Dahmer t-shirts and shit like that. And
Yeah,
so this was like the Scream universe version where they're like, oh, this is where Amber got killed. Here, take a selfie.
yeah,
And so I liked all of that. And even though there's elements to it that don't exactly work because the two characters in the wall we know are going to be fine. I liked the sequence where they're in the wall and Ghostface is like tapping on it, trying to find them. If they would have
yeah,
had Tatum have one of her friends over there and she was like sandwiched between them as they're trying to get and got stuck. And then all of a
yeah,
sudden you got a dead body that you got to like, you're between me and my daughter. Now we
yeah.
can't move. Something like that. Just a
Right?
simple little change
Yep.
could have made that one of the best sequences in the whole franchise.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I saw that in the trailer, um, I was instantly keyed in on that. I was like, man, that could be a really cool scene. We've never done that in a
Mhm.
Scream film, and hopefully Kevin will, kind of have some of that Wes Craven magic because Wes could draw out the tension in a church if he wanted to. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so that was a scene I was really excited for, and it was okay. It wasn't all the way there. And like you said, it could have been something simple, like having, someone else in there with them that got killed and you got to deal with it. It's right there. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely
have it
amazing.
where like they get stabbed and there's not a lot of space to move. So now you got this dead weight sitting here. Ghostface
Hmm.
knows that he got somebody.
Yep.
I sunk your battleship, bitch, or something like that.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you got, they got to like climb the rafters to like get over them to keep going, or like so that could have been
Yes.
a really cool thing where he can hear him and he's stabbing upwards and.
Yep.
Like I'm
Yep.
getting mad just talking about it because this is the first time I've actually thought through this scene and I'm like, gee, how do I think of that? And
Yeah.
Kevin Williamson, who's wrote, three of the best movies,
Right.
didn't think of that. I don't know.
Yeah, amazing stuff that he wrote in those movies, like the scene in
Mhm.
2 in the car with Sydney having to
Yeah.
climb over Ghostface.
Same
He
type
did
of sequence, just
same. Yep.
reversed. Mhm.
Yep, exactly. And it's still amazing watching it to this day.
Mhm.
The chase into with Gale, just some great stuff. And like I said, I will give this film credit. They had some of those elements there. They didn't completely get a touchdown, but they had some great elements with the attacks, and I did enjoy Ghostface. But again, it's like, how do they not see that?
Mhm.
It's just absolutely mind-bending to me. But let's talk about the favorite part for everyone, which is the third act, the reveal. I'll tell you this, and I think Ethan Embry and Anna Camp are very talented. I was very excited to have Anna Camp in this film, and to be honest, I pegged her from the beginning just because of the fact of, her status, and it just seemed like that, yeah, they're gonna have her be as Ghostface. She might even be Leslie Mocker, and so forth. She wasn't Leslie, but damn, she should have been, because that would have made it better.
Yeah.
When she pulled off the mask, I was just like, okay, they definitely tried to make you think for a second it could be Matthew Lillard, which to me that was a mistake, but we'll get to that. What did you think of her motive? Because I feel like as I'm hearing her run it off, I'm 50% with her. When she talks about, you inspired me with Out of Darkness. It helped me in an abusive relationship. I got out of it. I killed my husband and escaped to freedom. I mean, I'm not, saying, hey, people kill your abuser. But in the course of the movie, I was thinking, holy shit, we've got a sympathetic Ghostface killer.
Mm.
We never, I mean, a true sympathetic, I'm not talking about a mother getting revenge or that type of thing. And I was thinking, that's pretty cool. But then she kept talking, and she
Oh,
started
did
going off
she?
the rail, doing Pilates and everything. So what are your what are your takes on the motive that she gave?
I think the identities and especially the motive is by a landslide the worst that we've had. And I'm somebody who's extremely hard on the third act of six. Like
Mhm.
six, I really like all the way up to the last 20 minutes. And like I've been on record multiple times about how much that movie just goes off a cliff for me as
Yeah,
soon as the reveals happen. I think the identities are lame. I think that the
yeah.
motivation is lame. And I would have
Hammond,
bet
huh?
money of like, it's never going to be worse than that. Like, that's going to be the worst that we ever get. They're going to learn their lesson. And my God, did 7 say, hold my beer? Because like, I don't think they've done a great job at concealing the identity of Ghostface since 4. And I say that as a big fan of 5. I've been able to pick out at least one of the killers, sometimes multiple killers, by the middle of the film for the last couple. And I think it's because they've kind of lost a little bit of the magic that Wes used to have, where he would really deliberately put all these different things throughout the movie to make you constantly change your guess. He would point towards somebody and then he would give you a reason to kind of almost like an alibi. Just like in the first film where Billy's in jail and then Billy gets stabbed in the third act. There was things that he would do like that. And ever since Wes has left the project, ever since Wes passed away, it seems like their method of concealing it is just to have some really on the nose red herrings. And it just doesn't work for me because I can tell you're giving me a red herring. You always have the weird character. Like in this one, you had the neighbor kid who's the podcaster. And it's like, well, obviously he's not going to be Ghostface because it's so on the nose. It'd be ridiculous. But so you have Anna Camp that walks up. And to me, within like 2 lines of dialogue, I'm like, it's very weird how we've been introduced to multiple characters. And yet this chick walks up and immediately is dropping lore. Wonder why. And so immediately I'm putting her on my suspect list. And then we finally get introduced to Ethan Embry, who I can understand some people maybe not recognizing him, but I'm a huge fan of Dutch. So I always know who Ethan Embry is. Devil's Candy, he's great in that. And so he's one of those actors that sometimes the knowledge of the movie industry can work against you, where I'm like, okay, they're not going to cast him just to be an orderly for one scene. But even if even if they cast a nobody in that scene, when you have a character where they walk in like, hey, do you recognize this guy? Oh yeah, that's John Doe. Like, it's totally like, it's illegal as hell, but like, you guys seem cool. Come back here. Let me show you some stuff. And like, in that moment, I'm like, there's no reason for him to do this unless he's setting up his plan for the third act. So now I'm going to staple his name to the board. And then you have the other guy in the first act who just walks in randomly. He gets this long 3-second shot where he's just like,
I know,
looking at Neve Campbell, and it's like, wonder if that's going to be significant later. And the shame of it is, the 6th film, I think that the opening was it ended up being kind of a dick tease, but I got really excited at the opening of the 6th one, where I'm like, are we going to know who Ghostface is from moment 1? This is weird. Like, what's going to happen? Now all bets are off. Didn't end up being that. But you get this film where you get a middle of the movie Ghostface defeat and unmasking. But it's random fucking dude that nobody remembers. And like, it's like the idea on paper should be awesome, but the way that you executed it makes it meaningless. And so anyway, I'm long-winded, but when you get to the third act and the Ghostface masks come off, my first reaction is like, yeah, called that. Please God, tell me that you either have an awesome motivation and what I was really hoping and pretty confident that they were going to do was they're setting me up to think that I'm smarter than the movie, but they're going to have another twist. Like Stu Macher's actually going to walk out of the bushes, or there's going to be something that's going to make all this irrelevant. Please God. And no, didn't end up happening. So they tease you for a second that it's going to be Stu, it's Anna Camp. And then I'm like, okay, well, just please have something else. And then she just starts talking. And I'm like, what are you talking about, lady? What, like, this is just like thoughts, just random thoughts coming out. And, I've seen people try to say like, it's about parasocial relationships and it's actually really smart because of this and that and this. And I'm like, well, they've kind of already explored that in 5 with toxic fandom and things like that. So this is not like new territory, but I actually got kind of heavily annoyed at how much this movie was focusing on Sydney's absence from the 6th film. Like that was
they kept mentioning it over and over again. It's like,
and
they mentioned it. Get it.
Yeah, they mentioned it without ever picking a lane, which is the weird thing. Like, I don't know if one lane or the other would be a safe thing to say without pissing off part of the fan base. But like in one scene, you'll have them make a joke about like roasting Scream 6 for not including Neve. And then in the very next scene, there's a scene that seems to be roasting Neve for not being in New York and leaving Gail to her own devices. And I'm like, what is the point you're trying to make here? Because you're just saying things. And so the whole thing ended up basically being a very weird, like, go around your ass to get to your elbow way of saying, we're going to kill you because you weren't in New York. and now we're going to make you the star again. And it's like could you be more on the nose without having an actual like clever point when there's so many things in the movie that you could comment on? I mean, like I said in the opening with the influencer type of mentality and glorifying serial killers, and you have the whole AI angle that's right there. And is there more of a controversial topic in the movie industry right now than the AI?
Exactly.
How is that not at all discussed in this film?
I know.
It's just a device. And then, you know, even to the degree, like if you want to go down the breadcrumb trail that the opening kind of lays out, I mean, there's a pretty interesting point to be made that could change up the status quo of Scream of like Ghostface, and all the Ghostface killers are becoming more popular, more celebrated than Sydney. Like she's the badass celebrity in the first 6 movies. Everybody knows Sydney, and she's, you know, she's the queen. And then have like a commentary on modern society where it's like now everybody's just like really fascinated with the killers. You know, we got Stu fans, we've got Billy Loomis fans. Nobody cares about Sydney anymore. She's the victim. Who cares about her? Could have done something really clever with that, but no, we get housewife Pilates that, you know, I read your book and now I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, you're right. They definitely could have tapped into something like that. And like you said, the AI angle, which, you know, the on paper, it's like, okay, all right, that's pretty cool. Let's do that. And of course, this ties into the end of the movie for me in a way. You know, having Matthew doing the FaceTiming thing, that's also taken the place of the phone calls. Now, that's a
big loss.
Yes, the way that they used it in this film, absolutely, because now you don't have Roger Jackson. You know, we don't have the phone calls anymore. I think if they used it correctly and it actually was woven into the killers, you know, that would have made it better. And of course, having Matthew come back, to me, it's like, okay, you've got him calling Sydney. Yes, I'm glad to see Matthew Lillard. I love it. Stu, I love Stu. I want Stu to come back. Did I expect him to come back? No. Did I want him to? Yes. So you go through this whole movie of this back and forth, even Sydney saying, well, I thought he was dead. Maybe he's not, back and forth. And then at the end, come on out, Stu. And it's like, guys, the joke is dead. It's absolutely dead. And the thing I don't get is that took away so much of the mystery. You know what I'm saying? So what I was saying before I saw the movie is, okay, well, nowadays with Scream, it's not really the mystery as much anymore, because all of us fans, old school fans, we're putting together our list, our suspect list anyways. We're looking for everything, and we're really tuned in. So maybe now the magic has to be how we get to that mystery reveal, and then of course what happens after it. You know, case in point, 4, great reveal. The motive was way ahead of its time. And then Jill took us on a roller coaster after we see her unmask. I mean, it was great shit. Like, you were winning, winning, winning. So with this, it's like leading up to this reveal, this whole thing is basically teetering on Stu Macher. And obviously the filmmakers know they weren't going to use Stu Macher. He wasn't going to come back. So they were basically betting everything on this reveal with Anna Camp and Ethan Embry, and it just didn't pop. It didn't pop at all. You know, it's just kind of like, oh, okay. And then of course, like I said, I think, you know, the whole thing with the character of Jessica, half of it I was on board with. I was like, yeah, this could be great. You know, she's a you know, a sympathetic Ghostface, but then she just kind of went off the rails, and it just didn't do anything for me. It really didn't. If Stu had come out at the end, you know, then it would have been like, oh shit, they did it, you know. And of course he would have had his banter and so forth and so forth. Personally speaking, I think it should have been something that would have led into Scream 8, because then you would have had so many people on both sides of the fence, fans of Stu being alive and also fans that he didn't want him alive. But you would have had so much conversation about what are we going to see in Scream 8. And you could have had a little bit of that vibe in 6, where we start to follow Ghostface, his POV, you know, Stu's POV. Could have been some great stuff. But
I'm betting they're keeping that card in their pocket for Scream 8.
They've
Uh,
got to. That's the only thing I can see right
yeah,
now with
yeah,
this particular cast that could work. You got Tatum and Sydney, Gail's alive, the twins are alive. This
mhm,
is the only thing that I could see that could really like pump it up. Because like you said earlier, and I think it's true, they're backed up in a corner.
yeah,
They really are. Sydney's not gonna die. Tatum's not gonna die. Gail, I don't know, maybe, but they've really pushed her character all the way to the edge of the cliff.
mhm,
The twins didn't even need to be in this film, although I did enjoy their little moments, but they didn't need to be in this film. So
yeah,
what do you have left? You know,
yeah.
there's nothing left.
That's what it feels like to me. Like it feels like with all of the turmoil, and as much as Kevin Williamson, his name holds a lot of weight for us horror fans, I don't think he's the type of guy that would have a whole lot of power, at least not
Mhm.
yet. And
Right.
so like this is just me shooting from the hip. I have nothing to verify any of this, but my assumption of what happened was they got stuck. They were up Schitt's Creek without a paddle,
Yep.
and they said, Kevin, we know you're the series writer for half of these films. Maybe he's even wanted to direct before and has thrown his name in the hat, but they knew there were better directors out there. Because, I mean, he is the weakest director of the three that we've gotten in this franchise by a lot.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think they went to him and they said, okay, you have your shot. You can have control of this film, but we need it out by this date. There's no page one rewrite. There's no push it a year. Like it needs to be out 2026, February. Can you make it happen? And so he rewrote a little bit just to get his name in there, probably to get a little extra money because they get a writer's credit.
Yep.
But he was probably, I'm trying to give him as much of a benefit of doubt as I can. I think his hands were tied with this one. He's like, okay, I'll try to make lemonade. And, there's a lot of different reasons why this movie performed so well the first week. I don't
Yep.
think longevity wise, it's going to be top of the franchise or anything, but there's no denying the reception was far lower than the rest of them. And
Yeah.
so you got to assume, unless they have some really badass thing to throw into the marketing that's going to just really get people talking, they're going to see a sizable dip next time for all the people that did not like this one.
Yeah.
And so to me, it felt like, okay, we'll tease the Matthew Lillard thing. We'll kind of get a feel of like, we know what people on Twitter think, but let's get a feel for what the general audience thinks. If people really dug that, if they wanted more, if they hated it, I would bet money that Matthew Lillard signed a multi-movie deal, whatever, a multi-movie contract. And in the next film, I would assume they're going to leave it off with some kind of a cliffhanger to bank on everybody coming back for 9 in droves. Like they have to have some kind of a plan at this point where, this movie performed well. Now Kevin and Nev have much more bargaining chip where we're like, okay, you saw what we did. Like, look, you're making money hand over fist. So now you're not only going to pay me more, but I also want to have creative control of the story, the franchise. Like, this is our baby now. Trust us. And so I'm would bet that they're banking on having something like that in 8, where they'll, for whatever story they're going to tell, they got to know there's not a whole lot left to do there. And so you'll leave the end of the movie off with Stu actually is alive. See you next time, Sydney. And then Scream 9 would be them facing off finally, and that'll get them through the next 2 movies. The only other thing that they could do, which I just don't feel is on the table at all, at least not for a very long time, is to eventually mend fences with Melissa Barrera and get her and Jenna Ortega and Nev Campbell to team up in something. But it just feels like that's not in the cards at all right now.
Yeah, that's for like the 10-year reunion or something, or beyond, who knows.
Especially when they're dropping lines in the movie with Gail saying I wasn't fired, my contract ran out. It's like, ooh,
yeah,
did you have to put that in there?
I know,
that's a low blow.
Oh Lord, you gotta love it, man. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a couple more super chats here we're gonna get to. We got our good friend Sarah in the house. What's up, Sarah? Thank you so much for the super chat. Say, hey guys, hope you're having a great night. Cody, you mentioned 7 is dead last for you. So can you tell us what your full franchise ranking is?
I can, and I just did the video a couple of days ago, so it's fresh up in the noggin. So number 7, hard 7 is Scream 7 for me. It's the only one in the franchise that I would say I don't really like. The number 6 and number 5 can change places depending on when you ask me, but I'll say number 6 is Scream 3. Number 5 is Scream 6. And then from then up, you just have nothing but knockouts. So number 4 for me would be Scream 4. Number 3 would be Scream 5, which often that and my number 2 can swap places depending on my mood. My number 2 is Scream 2, and then of course the original is my favorite.
Interesting list. I
Mhm.
like that. Well, let me ask you this with 5, because I remember when 5 came out, there was, I think it was better reception, in the sense that, hey, we hadn't had a film in a long time, Radio Silence coming on board and trying to do what seemed to be the impossible, and that's to do a Scream film without the late great Wes Craven.
Yep.
With 5, what are some of the things that make it so high for you? Anything in particular?
I just thought it was a really nice fresh take where there was a bit of nostalgia in there. There was enough of the member berries to kind of whet the appetite for people that loved that, but it pushed things in a new direction and it took some chances and it had some balls. I'm one of those people that thinks killing Dewey was the right thing to do. And I know there's passionate people on the other side. There's people that don't want any legacy characters to ever die in this franchise. I don't understand you because to me, it's like, where's the stakes? I'm somebody that for as much as I like these original 3 characters, by the time you get to 4 and they walk away unscathed, it's like, okay, guys, like,
it's just not realistic.
At some point, there's got to be something here. And so not only did I think that David Arquette, just as an actor, gave his best performance as Dewey in that movie. There was so much emotional weight to him that was never there before. But, taking away the typical logistic issue you have where the Ghostface unmasked actor doesn't necessarily match the imposing figure of masked Ghostface. That's just like a thing in this franchise you have to get over. Taking away the fact that Honora realistically probably couldn't take out Dewey, I think that his death was a pretty good scene, and it brought a lot of weight to it. But I liked the new characters. That's the most important thing. I thought that they really introduced a nice new set of characters here. Even the ones that ended up getting taken out, I felt like I at least knew them. And there was something there that I was attached to. And I thought the third act was great. I did pick out Jack Quaid, as I said earlier. Jack Quaid within 2 lines, however many lines it took him to say that he doesn't know what the stab films are. I was like, Ghostface, bitch, get out of here with that. But
that's right.
But he made up for it with his motivation, and you can do that. You can fail on tricking me as long as you could follow it up. And I loved the whole thing about toxic fandom because just like with Jill, her motivation kind of being ahead of its time. I felt like 5 was a little ahead of its time, especially for this franchise, because immediately after 5, that's where Scream just went haywire as a fan base. And so I enjoyed the motivation. I really liked how our new final girl is like ruthless, the daughter of a serial killer, where she's like
dark side,
taking him out in a vicious way. And I liked the way that Sydney and Gale were used. Like, to me, they were in the movie just enough. They did not take away from the new characters, but they showed up in the third act to kick ass, and they did. They showed up and they were like, let's clean these bitches out. Like, they're not playing these games. Knew all the tricks, knew all right through Amber in the front. Like, what do you think? Nah, this bitch is playing us. Cow, you know what I mean? Like, I loved all of that. And so, 5 has a couple of issues, but I thought it was a really good spot to like reboot this franchise and go in a new direction. And Scream 6, all the way up until the last 20 minutes, I thought followed that up great. And then,
and then you've got Dermot hamming it up. Of course it was me.
Talking about somebody who is terrible in horror. Like, that guy's a good actor, but
he is.
I don't know what it is about him in horror where he just decides to turn into a fucking cartoon, but like everything that he's in, it's like he just turns up the hamminess. Like Insidious 3, in the first act with his daughter, he's weird. And then you get this movie where out of nowhere, he's like Looney Tunes. And then I don't know if you saw Night Patrol, but he's in Night Patrol doing the same thing. And I'm like, dude, like, can a director tell this guy he's in a horror movie?
I know what you mean. He just, I really, once he revealed himself and went off on his rant, I was just like, dude, I'm done. Now, I did enjoy Quinn. Out of the 3 of the Ghostface killers, I thought Quinn actually had that psycho that seemed authentic. You know what I mean? She had an intensity, and it's just a shame they didn't give her just a little bit more to do in that moment, because to me, she was easily the best of the 3. But back to 5, I was saying this to a couple of my friends and on some live streams lately. I just rewatched 5. Now it's been about 3 weeks now. And I've enjoyed it more and more rewatching it. And I do agree with you with a lot of your points. Although I thought going into it, I thought that they were going to kill Gale. and not Dewey. And I thought that that could have been, at least in my head canon, that could have been so interesting because Dewey was already so worn down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And David, like you said, that was amazing. What David did with that character was absolutely fantastic. It had me wanting more. I'm already a huge fan of this character, but he was able to somehow transform him, age him up, but he still had that dewiness to him underneath of the hard shell.
Yeah.
And that's so tough to be able to pull off. But, you know, it just showed how talented David is. I remember meeting him at a convention, and this little girl came up to him for an autograph. We were in line. She had to have been only like about 9 years old. She made him a photo album with pictures from the Scream films. And she was so adorable because she says, "I'm so sorry that they killed you in the movie." And if you could have seen the look on his face, and he had a smile that seemed so genuine, it was delightful. He was absolutely amazing. And just, you could tell that he appreciated the love from the fans because it was tough for him, you know, him dying. And I'm working on something where I'm going to do a video on it a little bit more. But yeah, it was a tough pill. But you're right. We got to have some stakes. We can't just keep facing these Ghostface killers and no one's getting killed, you know? So had to happen. Sarah, thank you so much for that super chat. We appreciate you. And I love what she said here. She's like, that would be the better story. Did you feel like they were taking swings at the Stu truthers? Because I mean,
there was a line where it was basically like, "You really thought Stu was alive? That'd be stupid. He's dead." Like that whole thing was, again, the movie was very tonally weird with where it was taking its jabs.
Yeah.
Because like as much as I feel like the appropriate time to do some wild swing like that has long passed us in the Scream franchise, like I love the passion that the Stu Lives people have. And they're almost getting their way now because, like, as we've said multiple times, they're almost backed into a corner where that's the only card they have left to play that's actually worth a damn. But it felt weird to dangle the carrot in the marketing and the pre-production stuff all throughout the movie, just to be like, "You wanted that, jackass? Never." And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just so weird because, you know, and I have a lot of friends, and I, like I said, including myself, that really wanted to see him come back just to see what they could do with it. And, you know, being big fans of Matthew. And it's like in the marketing, they're dangling it. And I don't know of any friend of mine or content creator that I talked to that thought that 100% Stu was going to come back. Like everybody basically had, you know, especially the ones that wanted it, they hoped for it, but they were like, oh, they're probably not going to do it. So nobody was thinking 100% we're going to see Matthew in the flesh in this movie. So it's like, it just seems like an odd choice to use him like that. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not, you know, you didn't bring him back. Now, again, like you said, whether it was a little bit of a game plan or now because they're backed into the corner, you know, we still got 8. But, you know, the thing that we had heard from Kevin about how they shot an ending where Stu was alive and they had a test audience that wasn't behind it. It's kind of like you based the decision on one test audience. It just sounds so weird. He said something like, I actually have it here. I had it from the other night. He said, we shot a coda at the end that we had in our back pocket, but oddly enough, the decision was that the audience wanted him dead. This just sounds so weird. It just sounds so weird.
It also could have just been a really stupid thing that they did at the end of this one, where it's like the idea in and of itself, fans probably would be up for it, but the way that they did it sucked. So let's punt that to when we actually have time to write a movie. Which I don't even know if they're going to have that, because they're already talking about, like, we're going to get this in front of cameras in, like, March of 2027. And I'm like, pause. Stop. What are you doing?
Right. I know, man. Oh, my God. Sarah, thank you for that as well. We also got Deep Red Mikey in the house, channel member anniversary. Thank you so much for the support. We appreciate it. This movie really cheapens the legacy of who has worn the mask before. I'm seeing it again Monday, hoping tampered expectations helps. Maybe. I've heard some people say when they've seen it the second time, you know, with the shock and all kind of worn off, they have come to enjoy it more. I do want to see it again. Obviously, I will see it again, whether it's in the theater or when it comes on digital. But do you think that? Well, first of all, are you even going to watch it again?
Not in theaters, no. I have no desire to. If I was going to do a spoiler talk, sometimes I go a second time just to have really, really cemented like thoughts on the whole plot of the movie. But that one, I was just like, the needle's not going to move much for me on this one. I think this is just how it is. Eventually, will I watch it again? I'm sure. I mean, I've watched all these movies, even the ones that I have previously at the bottom of my list. I've seen plenty of times. So,
right.
You know, and I've said that to be fair too. Like I might sound like I'm really hard on Scream 7, but I still gave it like a 2 out of 5, which is not a good rating, but like it's not near as bad as a lot of other franchises. You know, like there's like 3 or 4 Jason movies I would put below this. There's a couple of Freddy movies I'd put below this. There's 3/4 of the franchise of Wrong Turn I would throw below this. So like, you know, I'll watch Scream 7 before I'll watch a lot of other movies that I've watched numerous times out of obligation of this job. So, you know,
that's true. Very true. So with Scream being, like you said, a very consistent horror franchise, now that we've gotten 7, what other franchise do you think is right now as consistent or even more consistent? To me, there's only one franchise I could really think of that I've watched anyways, maybe another one, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, at one point I would have said there's 3 franchises in horror that you can always bet on being consistent. It's Evil Dead, Scream, and Chucky. Well, Chucky left that race a couple of years ago.
Yes.
I couldn't say that anymore with a straight face. And then I would have said, okay, right, Evil Dead and Scream, you can always bet on them being good. And now with Scream 7, I think it's just Evil Dead. I think Evil Dead is the only franchise I can look at and say there's not a bad or even a mediocre entry in that franchise for me. I think they're all good to great to some of the best of all time. Now they're really pumping the gas pedal on that franchise where we've got one coming out this year. We got one coming out presumably next year. It's in front of cameras right now. So maybe they'll start to, get a little quantity over quality, but I have no reason to doubt them at this point. So as long as they keep coming up with some fresh ideas, which has to be more than just let's do the same thing, but in a new setting.
Right.
I think
I appreciate Sam Raimi kind of giving the ball to these hungry directors with visions. You know, I think it's a good way for this franchise to keep moving forward, which is crazy, you know, when you get to this amount of sequels over these amount of decades.
Yeah. Somebody called out Final Destination in the chat too. I would say that one's in the conversation, but
that's what I was going to say.
I'm not as high on like the middle chapters of that franchise as everybody else. I love the original. I've always had a great time with 2. I'm not nearly as high on 3 as everybody else. That seems to be the fan favorite, and I've never quite been on that. 4, I think we all agree sucks. So 4 is the easy bottom of that one. And then 5 has things that I like in it, but even I'm not as high on that one. I think a lot of people just love the ending so much that they don't talk about the rest of the movie. Ever since that franchise turned full CGI gore, I think they lost something where it was a lot more intense in the first 2. But I loved Bloodlines. So
it was amazing.
Looking up.
Yeah, for all the things that they were going through before, you know, just as far as getting the production going and all that, I really was scared, you know, but then
I wasn't optimistic about it. I'll be honest. I was like, this franchise hasn't really been a thing for a while. And that title Bloodlines, like there's one of those in every franchise with the most unoriginal title possible. And and they still have CGI gore like a mofo in that movie, but they make up for it with great characters, really great scenes. That was one of my bigger surprises of last year. I was like, damn, all right, cool. Bring on another one.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was put together very well, the story and how that all came together. I think they did a fantastic job, you know, just giving Tony Todd his flowers and letting him have a very emotional but respectful moment. And it worked. I was very, very satisfied and happy with Bloodlines. Sarah also saying the Purge franchise is pretty consistent and underrated. It is underrated, I think.
I like the 2 with Frank Grillo. I'm not too hot on the other ones.
Yeah.
The first one I thought was a great concept, but I think like everybody, it's like, I kind of want to see everything outside of the house. And then they did that with the next one. It's like, there it is. And so Anarchy and Election Year, I really like. First one's okay. Don't really care for the first Purge much. Didn't care for Forever Purge. I never watched the TV series, but I always thought it'd be a really cool way to reboot that franchise would be to do a movie that you don't know is a Purge film, which is almost impossible nowadays with freaking social media. But like have a movie like, I think me and my buddy were spitballing in LA and we were trying to write like a prison slasher movie where you got like an evil warden and he's like pitting the prisoners against the guards and just having like a little psycho version of like a battle royale or whatever. And the main character survives with full intention to expose the warden for all the stuff that he's done, and he goes outside and you hear the horn for the purge and the purge is over. So he did it during the purge so that he's exonerated, like some kind of like cool, like almost like Split, where you don't realize it's an Unbreakable sequel until the end and you're like, oh, this is a Purge movie. Like I think that's the way they need to go.
Yeah, no, that would rock, man. And I agree, man. You have a movie that hides itself like that, which is so impossible to do. But Split, that was a great example because I kid you not, man. First of all, I love that movie so much. James McAvoy is so underrated and amazing. And when they got to the end of the movie, I felt like a little kid, bro. When I
felt like a moron because I was the only one in the theater, like, oh, they're like, what? I'm like, the music.
Yes, the music. And you see freaking Bruce Willis, and I'm like, are you serious? Like it's so weird to say it, and that's why I know I'm a movie geek, because in that moment it felt like my head exploded. Like you would have thought I just won the lottery, but it was such an amazing moment, and they were able to hide it under the covers from everybody. So it was so cool, man. So cool. Real quick too, we got one more, actually no, two more super chats here as we're winding down, guys. Hollywood guy, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Say, hey guys, was there a reason why the psych patient wanted to kill Sydney? Did they mention it? What was his motive? Peer pressure. I'm confused.
Yeah, they very lightly touched on why the guys were there, like just enough to give somewhat of a tether, but not enough to really like over explain it. And it's just she ended up in that mental hospital after Sydney went away and she had a mental break, and so they let you fill in the gaps yourself. Like I guess she was just like, you know what, guys, let's get out of here and go kill people, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, I know they really glazed it over. It's ridiculous. Hollywood guy, thank you so much for the super chat, man. I hope you're doing well. We also have a sticker coming in from Jeff. Thank you so much for the support. We really appreciate it. Hope that you're enjoying the conversation. Cody, as we get ready to head on out here and wind this down, any interest? I know we were talking backstage, and we don't have to get into those things if you don't want to, but any upcoming things going on with you or any side projects that you've been I mean, you're always working hard, so I know to you that sounds stupid, but just, in the context of people maybe not knowing, any things you've been working hard on?
Well, we just had the new Resident Evil game drop. I don't know if you're a gamer at all, but I have a gaming channel that I have neglected off and on for the last couple of years. I created it right after I went full time with the intention of that being like just as much of a focus as my movie channel. Did not happen. Just didn't have enough of me to go around. So I've just been kind of like live streaming over there, but I'm a massive Resident Evil fan. So hyping up that game, I have been playing through all the older games and live streaming all of it. Nice. I live streamed the brand new game. I just dropped a review, which I did 2 edited Resident Evil videos on that channel. It's the first time I've done that since 2023. So got a lot of good, like, heart beating over there on Cody Leach Game Chamber if you're a gaming fan. And I've got a couple more Resident Evil things coming down the pipe at some point, like a new ranking, things like that. And then as far as movies, I'm actually leaving on Wednesday to go to Austin, Texas for just over a week for South by Southwest. So I attended that for the first time last year going back. So I'm gonna see the premiere of Ready or Not 2.
Nice.
They Will Kill You. There's a lot of other like really weird sounding indie films that I'm really excited about. Nice. There's one of them called Chili Finger where it's just the title. I'm like, what? And so I clicked on it, and it's Sean Astin and Judy Greer as a married couple, and they're in like some podunk little diner and there's a severed finger in their chili, and so they sue the restaurant, and Bryan Cranston's like the CEO trying to get revenge on them. So it's
Oh,
like a dark comedy or whatever. I'm like, I'll watch that all fucking day. Give me that.
yeah,
And so I
yeah.
got a lot of like a really trippy sounding independent movie, Hokum, which I don't know anything about it, but apparently there's a lot of buzz in the horror community about that one. So I'm going to see like 22 to 24 brand new films, many of which probably won't come out for 9 to 12 months from now. That's where I saw Together, Rivals of Amziah King, Accountant 2 last year.
Yeah.
So we'll get a good bit of content coming out from that. And that's really it. I'm just trying to get a lot of Resident Evil stuff and a couple of videos done to just to have in the tank to kind of trickle out while I'm out of town. And hopefully I'll see a lot of really cool shit that I can let everybody know to keep their eyes out for.
Awesome stuff, man. Definitely a lot of work. Hollywood guy is coming in one more time before we head on out. Thank you so much, man. Seriously, you rock. If Stu comes back in 8, I hope not, but if it happens, I want Scream 8 to be the last for Nev and Stu and Gail. Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I was just about to say that. That's what Jamie Lee Curtis said after Resurrection, after the debacle of bringing Michael back, and it just, as long as that money is talking, maybe this could be the last thing I wanted to throw at you because I know you're a big Freddy fan.
Yeah,
these franchises have been. I mean, Scream is 30 years this year. Friday and Elm Street are 40, 45 years. Halloween's going to be 50 years in 2028. As a fan, and obviously maybe as a content creator too, do you think that is there any part of you that wants to see them come to a stop or maybe come to a stop for a long time? I mean, obviously Elm Street and Friday have, but not necessarily because they wanted to.
I don't think any of them have gone to a point where it's like, you're never going to top this. You've had a perfect run. Don't test fate. Stop here. I think they've all had so many ups and downs and ebbs and flows that I don't think I would ever vote to have any of them go away forever. If nothing else, just go away for a while. Like Halloween. I'm like, I'm good until like 2030. If you guys want to take a break, like seriously, I've had enough Michael Myers for a while. But Freddy, Jason, I think we've proven that horror and the hunger for horror is never going to falter. It only gets better and only gets stronger as long as the material is good.
Yeah.
I think for the last 4, maybe 5 years, horror has been at probably the strongest place it's ever been, where, we've always had these eras where 70s kind of had a little bit more grindhousey stuff going on. And then the 80s was all about slashers and gore and practical effects. Then 90s, Scream, self-referential meta. Then it was remakes. Then it was torture porn and found footage. And we're in an era now where I don't think horror is defined by a specific subgenre. It's all of them. Like they're all succeeding. We get a little bit of everything right now. Some better, some not. But everybody's hungry for every type of horror as long as it's good and it sounds cool, will be there. And horror fans have proven, I mean, just by the box office of Scream 7, despite so many people having reservations, despite this massive supposedly boycott that's going on, all this other stuff, and it ends up being the highest first weekend of the entire franchise. And it's like, if you build it, we will come. And so I think when it comes to Nightmare specifically, I think all of us are beyond hungry for that. Just wondering what the hell the holdup is. But for all these other franchises, going away for a while, taking a pause, figuring out a cool new angle, or letting the horror landscape change a little bit that you can kind of take advantage of, that's got some merit. But I don't think any of them are ever going to be at a point where I'm like, okay, no more Scream, no more Michael Myers, no more Jason, like never again.
Right. Yeah, they've earned their place and have shown why they can stand the test of time of all these decades, because there's a lot of franchises that wanted to or wish they could but just couldn't.
Yeah.
And when you think of I look at it like the big four. These are our universal monsters of the last several decades, and they'll be around for a long time in my estimation anyways. And Scream is a great example of that, bringing in people that
you know, we're in the theater in 1996 watching the first one, and now you've got young people. You know, my youngest is 12. You know, her friends and even younger. Yeah, Scream 7. Yeah, I'm like, what do you
My
guys know
daughter
about Scream?
was chomping at the bit for this movie. Scream is her favorite horror movie. You know,
Nice.
I was when I was rewatching these movies, preparing for the release of Scream 5. She just kind of poked her little head in. She was only 5 at the time, and
Oh
was just
wow.
captivated by Ghostface, and was just totally sold. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing this now, I guess. And
Yeah.
so she has loved this franchise, and she asked me weeks before it came out if she could go with me, and I'm like, yeah, I'll go ahead, I'll buy you a ticket. It'll be a me and you thing. And I'm
Oh,
not joking. It was I wish I would have videotaped it. This girl got off the bus with the most evil grin. She's like, "You ready for Scream 7?" And I'm like, "Yeah, girl, let's go."
wow.
And so I actually probably liked the movie more than I would have because she was having such a good time with it.
Good.
So, you know, Kevin Williamson can at least give half of the half a star out of that 2 out of 5 of mine to my daughter's happiness.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
all.
you're right. I mean, she liked Scream 7. She digs what they're doing. You know, the only thing she didn't like was the ghost face reveal midway through the movie. She's like, that's not supposed to happen. Nope. Not passing on that one. But
I love that. Oh my
yeah.
god.
Hmm.
Bro, that's probably the coolest. I would have never thought we would have that little excerpt right there. That is a cool story, bro.
Oh yeah. I'm
And
telling you, I wish I could get a picture of that face because she came out the bus and she was just like, "You ready for Scream 7?" I'm like, "Yeah,
wow.
girl, come on, let's go."
That's awesome, man. Hey, well, good job on dad for you know,
Hmm.
setting up this next generation because we got to keep the ball rolling, man. Horror
Oh
is
yeah,
amazing. It really is. So,
for sure.
Hollywood guy, thank you so much for that super chat, sending us down that rabbit hole. That was a beautiful story. Always love hearing stories like that about any kids that are coming up and you know find a love for horror like we all did. That's what it's all
Mhm.
about, guys. So that's also goes back to a point I've said. You know, I have frustrations with this movie being a big Scream fan. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen by a long shot. I just was really frustrated by some of the choices. I'm gonna watch it again, see how it falls. But like I've always said, a win for horror is a win for, you know, all other horror. So, you know, we've got kids enjoying it. It's made a lot of money, so I'm happy, you know,
Mhm.
as a horror fan. So, all right, guys, we're going to head out of here. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really appreciate it. If you haven't hit the like button, please make sure you do that. If you're not following Cody, we have had the links in the chat to his socials, his channels. So make sure you guys do that. I'm sure you guys are, but if you're not, make sure you guys do it. If you're not following the Scream at Night podcast, make sure you guys do that. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all that stuff. Give us a follow. And yeah, we will catch you guys next time. And as always, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.